Welcome, nutritionradio.org listeners. This is Lonnie Lowry, a university nutrition professor of over 20 years, senior scientist, and podcast host of long-running shows like Iron Radio. This is its sister show and covers just nutrition from a variety of angles. Come on in for your brief weekly dose of commentary, critique, and probably a comedic touch when we have co-hosts. Let's see what's on tap this time. Fitness Fridays. Hey everybody. The plan on Fridays is to have video conversations on Skype or some other means. This time the video was altered or sort of corrupted. We weren't able to get the purest recording we could, so we're just going to share some images from the screen along with some comments from our guest host this week, which is Abby Stack. She's a superstar undergrad student in exercise physiology. And what we're going to talk about today is how social media has changed. I've been away for a couple of years, and I'm very curious how it's impacting fitness, science in general, how influencers are reaching people in different ways, and if that's a good or a bad thing. So let's start with that, Abby. What do you think about this whole scenario?
So first, I think it's kind of become a lot at the forefront of a lot of social media, which is a good thing because I think it's gotten a lot more people into fitness and exercising, which was not the case beforehand. But I think it also comes along with some issues because there's so many people in the space now. It's very saturated, and I find that a lot of the voices that are trying to be louder than others are not always people who use like evidence-based practices. And they're kind of like pushing these ideas onto people and telling them that they're like the only person that they should listen to. And a lot of the times I think they're also trying to profit off of these people. They're selling programs and that kind of stuff, et cetera, et cetera. And it's really not beneficial to those who are really just looking to improve their fitness because they're so vulnerable and they don't exactly know where to go yet. They don't know where to look at experts, and it's pretty difficult to find them because you got like, let's say 1 million people into fitness, about like 10 of those people are like the expert people. You have to seek them out, and they're not exactly the ones that are paying for ads on Instagram to get their message out there, so they're not as accessible. Like for example, if someone were to say, I want to start working out, and they're looking for a personal trainer, in their head they're not looking for the certification. They're not like, oh, let me look for an ACSM certified or NASM. They're just like, certified personal trainer. There's like 1 million certifications out there. There's people that get their certifications overnight, and it's like, well, that is an issue because there's also people that this is their whole knowledge base, and those people I think are getting a little bit overshadowed at the moment.
I think that's a great point about the hundreds of certifications and how some aren't worth the paper they're printed on. So what's the answer then? How do we get around that? What's the problem with quality, highly educated people reaching the public with better messaging?
I think it's difficult because a lot of the messages that these PhD individuals have aren't as like flashy and interesting as people without the PhDs, because usually those don't really have any backing to them, and that's like a whole nother thing. But so it's really hard to push messages that I guess people don't want to hear sometimes. Like, yeah, it's going to take a while to if you're looking to diet for this amount of time, like it's going to take a really long time. You're going to have to put this much effort in. It's definitely something that people don't want to hear. And in addition to that, I think it's hard because for someone with a PhD to be respected, I feel that a lot of them don't want to cross that line of like advertising themselves because it's kind of like not seen as very academic, or because I mean typically it's not the way that no one wants to see an ad like that just says or something like attractiveness about a video. The titles that attract people to get them to click on them are typically like false information, and no one with a PhD would put something with false information, I guess.
even those with PhDs or a license to practice aren't above reproach, of course, but at least when you look at those evidence pyramids at the lowest rung of professional opinion, at least their opinion is professional.
Yeah, exactly.
As opposed to completely self-based or just financially motivated.
Mm-hmm.
So as you get more educated, how do you navigate the minefield of social media and compare it to what you know to be quality evidence, right?
Yeah, so I really like to look up to like experts that put things into more understandable terms. Just for like I do look at studies, but for example, like Dr. Mike Israeltelman has like a huge YouTube channel with a bunch of videos, and I watch those all the time, and he's obviously an expert in his field, and so but he makes that knowledge like in very interpretable for like the layperson, and some a little bit more advanced, and I like to watch both of those. And same with just like a lot of podcasts, fitness podcasts with people that like are interpreting the data for me, I guess sometimes is just like nice because it's good to hear all multiple interpretations of what like new research is coming out and what um seems to be the most effective in like training and diet, exercise, all that type of stuff.
So how has social media evolved? I mean, I see YouTube videos getting shorter and shorter. What else is coming down the pike that an old professor might not be aware of, that sort of thing?
I think TikTok is huge. People just scroll, so definitely shorter, like you said. Um, TikTok's huge. People scroll. They'll look at other people's just like, I guess, workout split, and they'll just kind of copy it. Like that's like basically how a lot of people, I think, get into fitness nowadays. And obviously what someone else is doing is maybe not even your goal. Maybe their workouts are not set up for what you are actually going to try and achieve. Um, or if it is set up for that, it's probably not set up for you because it is another person's routine and they have adjusted it for themselves. So it's a lot of like copying, and I think it's great to get inspiration from these people, like look at new variations of different exercises, but um like the whole like do this and this will happen is not true for every individual. So it definitely people need to understand that things are a little bit more nuanced than just copying someone's entire workout routine for a whole week.
Yeah, the whole copying or one-size-fits-all template kind of thing, that's been around for a long time. Social media just makes it so much easier to abuse that sort of thing. I don't think a lot of people realize that with any real healthcare professional, there's screening, right? There's assessments and there's programming. There's a lot that goes into this on an individual basis. It's not like you go see your doctor and he just gives you a template. He looks at you specifically.
And I think something else that comes up when I'm on TikTok is someone will be like, someone who is, I guess, trying to use evidence-based practices. They're misinterpreting studies by saying, like, they cherry pick one study. And I don't think a lot of people understand that one study does not represent like a whole idea, a whole theory. They're like, this study showed that you should probably stop eating apples or you might never see muscle growth. And it's just like, well, what? Like there's 7 participants in that study and there was no control of this and that. And it's just like, that's a huge problem because I think people without like any experience in academia or even reading research are trying to like apply it and use it against people. Like people will do something and they'll be like, have you seen the new study that shows that you should not do hamstring curls lying, you should do them seated? And it's just like, that's one study out of how many?
That came up pretty recently with a new paper on intermittent fasting and about how it didn't have quite the impact that earlier studies suggested it did. But again, yeah, I think people need to be critically minded and look at each study as inching science forward and not completely overturning everything with new rules, right? That's the kind of thing influencers love to talk about, new rules. That's just not how science works.
Yeah.
But with things evolving, with new social media platforms and channels and all these different things, it's got to be tough to judge.
I definitely think it is hard to make a judgment, but I think the best thing that has come out of it is that although it might be like similar to how it was before, I think there's just simply like more of it. Like I think there's a lot of people into fitness lately, and think maybe as we move forward, people will get more into really wanting that like evidence-based or things that do work because over time, if you're just doing whatever, you're not going to really see those results. So I think people are starting to seek out more, I guess like better sources of information. I saw this might be something a little bit interesting, but I saw another podcaster was talking about potentially AI like generated those like chats and stuff and being able to create a AI generator that would pull only from the best experts when you ask questions.
Interesting.
And so it could potentially, you could be like, so how many sets and reps should I do on this exercise to achieve maximum hypertrophy? And it'll just kind of come up with a little blurb based on what experts say. Experts would say that this many repetitions is the best for this exercise typically, like stuff like that. So might simplify our information.
Thanks for the great insights. We'll probably continue this conversation in the future, but that's going to be it for now. We'll see you next time, everybody. The nutritionradio.org podcast is for informational purposes only. If you're interested in starting a diet or exercise program, check with your physician, nutritionist, or qualified exercise physiologist in order to make the progress that you need.